Well, hey everybody, it's Mr. Schauber, and let's go over quickly the war in North Africa. Of course, for the men who fought there, this was not a small deal, but we won't, for our purposes, won't spend as long on this aspect of the war as we will on some of other aspects of the war. But the war in North Africa was crucial because the Italians under Mussolini had been down in Africa for a while, and they'd conquered Ethiopia, and that was supposed to show how tough Mussolini was. Now he'd done that back in the 20s, and so once World War II starts and Hitler joins up with the Italians and with Mussolini, and they form a pact, of alliance, then Hitler also has influence down in North Africa, and they're going to use that. They're going to be down there to pillage resources and to suppress the people, and so the Allies have to get North Africa back. They have to reconquer, let's put it this way: they have to kick the Axis powers out of North Africa. Of course, after doing that, then the Allies can concentrate on mainland Europe itself. Okay, but they've got to win North Africa first. So let's talk about this campaign for a few minutes. In North Africa, a German army led by General Erwin Rommel, one of Germany's top generals. He was nicknamed the Desert Fox for his shrewd tactics. Okay, uh, he he was unstoppable in North Africa. It seemed. Most people feared that the Germans could not be beat there and that Rommel could not be defeated. Well, since August of 1940, a British army had been battling Italian and German troops in North Africa. Okay, but to no avail. Rommel and the Germans continued to hold that area. Well, that will change. See, Rommel had never really been beaten, but something's got to change, and it does. In November of 1942, the British, under General Bernard Montgomery, won a decisive victory at El Alamein in Egypt. And this is where the Allies defeat Rommel really for the first time, right? And the German army is now on the run. Okay? The German army starts to retreat west. And a few days later, after Montgomery wins this battle at El Alamein, British and American troops commanded by this guy, General Dwight D. Eisenhower, land in Morocco and Algeria and push eastward. And so after Montgomery and the British win at El Alamein and knock the Germans back, the Germans start to retreat toward the west. Eisenhower lands American and British troops, and they start going east to sandwich in the Nazis. And so here you can see kind of what happens at El Alamein there on the far right over in Egypt. And now the Germans are moving. The Germans are running. Okay. And you can see then over where Eisenhower would land. And they will, between Montgomery and the British and Eisenhower and the Americans, they're going to bookend or sandwich in the Nazis and Rommel. And so in May of 1943, the two Allied armies came together in Tunisia, right there in the middle. And they trapped Rommel's forces there. Despite Hitler's instructions to fight to the death, nearly 250,000 Germans and Italians surrender in Tunisia, realizing that if they tried to fight off the Allies there in Tunisia, they would all be wiped out. Okay, so this is a major victory for the Allies in North Africa, and now the Allies can focus their attention, like I said, on mainland Italy and Sicily. Okay, so this is going to be huge, right? And the Allies are on their way. So let's just look at some pictures here real quick of North Africa. North Africa and the battles that took place there were really tank battles by and large. Of course, you had troop movements, but tank battles going on because North Africa is dominated by desert. And how do you get across the desert? Well, on foot, not always the best way, right? So you want to be in vehicles, trucks, tanks. And so the tank battles that occurred in North Africa must have been amazing. But yeah, a lot of it's going to be tank battles there, and It's going to be pretty crazy stuff. Here's another picture of soldiers with their tanks parked around there, and they got their little tents, to sleep in, and some of their supplies and resources. But yeah, I mean, you would camp out and then get up, get in the tank, and you'd go, right? And pretty amazing, pretty cool. Here you can see the dust, the sand being kicked up by the tanks. You did not want to be the tank in the back, that's for sure. But that's how the armies really kind of fought each other. They had some crazy, massive tank battles there in North Africa, which would have been really interesting to see. Here's a view from up above. You can see where the troops, an encampment, okay, of troops, and all the cargo trucks and the trucks carrying the troops. But this is where they're going to be camping out, and get on the move from there. There's an Allied plane flying over the Great Pyramids. I mean, think of what some of the things you would have seen, right? The Great Pyramids, the Sphinx, stuff like that. How cool would that have been to have been around those things and to see that? Here are some troops marching past the Great Pyramids, right? I mean, so talk about the history, right? Just unbelievable. But yeah, tanks and by foot, and that's how the troops got around, and by truck. But a lot of cool sights as well. There's a pilot with his airplane. He, of course, painted in the front. It looked cool, right? All right, and to finish up, then let's talk about this Casablanca Conference. In January of 1943, just a few months before Montgomery, the British general, and Eisenhower, the American general, trap the Axis-powered army, mainly the Nazis, in Tunisia and force them to surrender there. Uh, that was in May of 43. But in January of 43, just a few months before that, President Roosevelt of the United States, Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of England, and then in the middle of them here is Charles de Gaulle, who was kind of the de facto leader of the Free French forces. Okay, because Hitler had France at the time, but the guy leading the free, the anti-Hitler French forces was Charles de Gaulle, who would later become the leader of France after the war. So these guys get together at Casablanca, Morocco. Morocco is a North African country as well, and they put their heads together and they talk about basically planning out the strategy for taking back Europe. How do we reconquer Europe? How do we get it back out of Hitler's hands? Uh, once we win in North Africa, which we believe we're going to do, and of course they did, we need a strategy then to take Sicily, to take Italy, to go to France and take that back. We've got to get all these countries that Hitler has surrounded himself with, added to his empire and used as a buffer zone. Um, and so we've got to take all these places back and liberate these people and get the Nazis out. So how do we do it? And it's at Casablanca, Morocco, that these world leaders plan out the strategy to do that. And so, pretty important conference and pretty important, a meeting of the minds there in the scheme of world history, in the context of world history. So that is the just a quick little synopsis of the main stuff in North Africa in World War II. It really revolved around the British and the Americans defeating Rommel and the Germans, and which they did, and the Allies now have North Africa in their hands, and now they can go to Europe.